Hello everyone, ladies, gentlemen, and otaku alike. This is Recall Reviews. Attilio back here again, and I'm joined by
KrazyStarGazer. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Now, we just got back, literally 15 minutes ago, got back from watching Spider-Man No Way Home. And we have words to say about this movie.
Yes.
So, this will kind of be a two-stage video. I'm going to give you the time code here, and I'll put a little warning signal in when we get into spoilers. Because this portion of the video is going to be spoiler-free, but we are eventually going to get into spoilers. Mm-hmm. And I'm too lazy to make a separate video for this.
Yeah.
So, just in general, what do you think about this movie?
I think that this movie is going to make a lot of fans very happy. I think that it is a celebration about everything Spider-Man, and that if you have been a longtime fan for a long time, you are going to be hype about this movie.
A longtime fan for a long time makes sense to me.
Yeah.
No, definitely. This movie is a love letter to Spider-Man the same way Into the Spider-Verse was. Mm-hmm. It celebrates, where Into the Spider-Verse was a celebration of Spider-Man in the comics and cartoons and so on. This was a love letter to the Spider-Man movie universes, mm-hmm. for sure, definitely. I guess let's start with cinematography. How do you think the camera work was, the framing and all that?
I think that the MCU as a Marvel fan, admittedly, the MCU can have a little bit of a problem with stilted camera work, but I think they really get some really good poster shots, if you get my drift.
Definitely a lot of frames that would make good screensavers and wallpapers and stuff. I would definitely agree with that. Mm-hmm. They should get other cinematographers in for some stuff. I would love to see what Zack Snyder would do with some of this stuff.
You would like to see? Oh
no, cause think about it like this. What if Zack Snyder did a Spider-Man movie and he did the 300 slow down speed up with some of the swinging and fight scenes?
Maybe. But all right.
But cinematography was good. The shots that needed to be tightened up close were tightened up close. The mm-hmm. shots that needed to be fluid to keep up with the action were good. The shots that I think I would have liked a little more dynamic would definitely be a couple of the fights, in the kind of midpoint of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's no spoiler to say, obviously Tom Holland's Peter fights Green Goblin. And there's some points in the fight where I wish they tried to maybe replicate even some of what was done in the Raimi films.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we had good establishing shots, and you see everything that's going on. But some of that, because what Raimi did great in that fight especially, is he went back to his horror roots and filmed the fight like a scene from a horror movie.
I just resaw the Raimi films, and again, you can definitely see all the horror Dutch angles, all the cinematography, and I think that creative freedom allowed the Tobey Maguire movies to stand out in that way. Definitely. That maybe the Marvel movies have a little bit of trouble replicating, but what I do think they make up for is, of course, the plotting.
Yeah. The writing is definitely, which I guess we'll get into the writing now, because we as far as the cinematography, it's good. It's just kind of the status quo for the MCU movies. It's like you turn on an MCU movie, you know you're going to get good shots, you know it's going to look good. Maybe it's not always going to be the most dynamic thing, but it's going to be good.
Oh, you know, I do gotta kind of bite my tongue a little bit because we do have Doctor Strange, so you do get like some trippy images.
Well,
but,
yes, you definitely get these psychedelic, like what you saw in the first Doctor Strange movie. You get that in this movie, and it's good and it looks good, and that's like the most dynamic the camera work gets, aside from some of the swinging scenes later on.
I think like maybe my one qualm would be I wish that they would maybe kind of give the cinematography, you know, like how you give the music for each character. You give like the Spider-Man cue, the villain cue. I wish there was like a filmmaking cue for like the Spidey fights to make it kind of like a little unique, a little bit of flavor.
You know, like the camera work is different for each villain fight. I get that.
Yeah. You get it.
You know, because like again, like with the fights in the Andrew Garfield movies. Let's use his fight with Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. At that power plant, it's real dynamic camera work. They're doing some of that slow down, speed up stuff.
Yeah.
I just think it would have looked better if Snyder did it. 'Cause he fucking practically trademarked that shit.
True.
So, you know, where the camera's rapid following Peter as he's swinging around and zipping around the power plant, avoiding Electro and stuff. And that's kind of how that fight would go because of the nature of what that fight would be. You gotta stay off the ground. You gotta stay in the air. You can't hang on to any objects too long, especially in a metallic object. Where Goblin's really a horror villain, really, if you think about it. And Sam Raimi did such a good job at making, like, Green Goblin both ridiculous and funny, but also scary at the same time with some of the stuff. Especially any scenes where you get to see, like, Willem Dafoe's teeth through the mask. With the mouth part open, and it's like, just this pair of teeth inside this other pair of teeth, and just it's just unsettling.
Oh, you know what? It's just like a xenomorph.
Yes. And again, this probably isn't a spoiler. Willem Dafoe does in fact have an animatronic goblin face. But no, we'll talk about the performances coming up soon. Right now, we'll definitely talk about the you know, what was the other thing that you brought up?
So we got cinematography. Let me think. Let's talk about. We mentioned plot, but should that be spoiler?
Writing. I think.
Writing.
We'll talk about the general writing.
And
then when we get into spoilers, we'll further elaborate on the writing. Yeah, because like a video like this where we're just doing totally unscripted for you guys. It's our genuine, true reactions off the cuff here.
Off the cuff.
I thought the writing was tight.
I think the MCU, of course, their bread and butter is kind of interweaving everything into a quilt. So it's like, it's very rewarding if you watch one thing, so you can be like, hey, I know the thing from the other thing I saw. So, of course, picking off the first thing you see in this movie is, it picks off right off where Far From Home left off.
Yeah, exactly where. So this is so it's not like it's like here's Spider-Man a year later. This is literally still, they just graduated junior year, and people just found out that he's Spider-Man, and it picks up literally in that same scene.
Yes.
Like it feels like they might have filmed that scene and just ran with it, although they, you know, like filmed that scene in Far From Home and just put it in here, although they didn't do that because the costume is slightly different. You know,
Well,
the costume in Far From Home had the same kind of belt pattern of the red and blue suit, the Stark suit that he had, but this one had closer to that V belt that's in your classic Spider-Man suit. So it is a newly filmed scene, but it just picks up right after.
Yeah, and at least in terms of the movie, you're supposed to buy that it is literally directly after the movie.
Yeah, it's just making a minor suit retcon, which, in a way, how it's like treating it like it's the exact same suit. It's just aesthetically more pleasing to look at because it's more identifiable as the classic Spidey suit.
Yeah. And I would say that the writing here was very... what would I say?
It was very punchy.
Yes, very punchy. I would say that Marvel is getting much more experimental, and they're kind of in this phase where they know that we know that they don't need to convince us anymore. They're beyond the phase of trying to convince us that magic is real, that a dude can fly with a metal suit, that aliens exist. They're beyond that point. So either you're in on the craziness or you're not. So
yeah,
they pretty much pick up saying, hey, we're going straight into the multiverse, and look, they've been hinting at this for a while now.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so I'm sorry, if you don't know what the multiverse is, brush up on quantum physics, don't know what to tell you.
Or just pick up a comic book and you'll learn what
this
the
is also
multiverse
true.
is. There was a little Flashpoint reference in there, which was funny.
Yeah, I was even saying, I was like, is that a DC Flashpoint reference I see?
Yeah, definitely. What do I gotta say about the writing? Is it's good. The MCU humor doesn't work for everybody. I definitely think for the main cast, the heroes, Peter, MJ, Ned, May, Happy, and etc. The writing works for them because that kind of writing was made for those characters.
Okay, I got you.
Some of the MCU humor didn't quite land with some of the villains, but it wasn't. I feel like it hit more than it didn't. Some of the outlandish reactions from Ock didn't feel like they would come from the Raimi version of Doc Ock.
I think you could kind of maybe... I don't know, maybe this is my little bit of nerd side saying, but maybe there's kind of this effect where when you're drawn into a universe, you kind of act a little more like that way, but that's just...
Like the universe itself is trying to correct the anomaly based on assimilation, something like that.
See, this guy be reading quantum physics books.
So, no, I just read too many comics.
Like I said, too many quantum physics books.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think that the writing for Peter, MJ, Ned was all great.
Yes.
I think the writing for Defoe was good.
Yes.
I like, and we can talk a bit more about this when we get to what we think of the editing, but I like that they let him ham it up a bit, because out of all the characters that we got in the movie, it definitely felt like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin was written the truest to the original incarnation from his movie.
Yes, for sure.
As far as writing and including the characters go, it felt like some of the character motivations just shifted at random points.
Yeah, I can feel like certain character motivations felt a little a little confused, but I think that you kind of can say, well, they were confused.
Yeah.
But I think, to kind of harp on a kind of a point, I think Spider-Verse, to compare it to something, Spider-Verse somehow managed to kind of interweave that, but still it just flowed.
Well,
maybe it just needed a little more. Maybe it just needed a little more of that flow.
was written from... Well, Spider-Verse was written from start to finish to be this thing.
True,
I feel like some of the stuff in Far From Home was meant to be kept such a secret that they filmed some of this stuff and wrote some of the stuff later on. I did hear in some interviews from cast and crew that scenes were being written as they were filming.
Okay.
For Far From Home.
That's fair.
I mean, not Far From No Way Home.
No Way Home. See, the whole home thing is good.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's the Home trilogy.
Ugh.
The Sherlock Holmes trilogy. No. But, you know, so like, when they brought Sandman in, again, it's no spoiler, he's in the trailers and all the advertisements, Sandman's there. When they brought Sandman in, he like, picked up basically from where he left off. He was helping Peter. Because he's like, you know, because he was like, you know, and they do the whole thing and say, oh, well, you know, yes, I'm Peter, but I'm not your Peter, I'm not your Spider-Man. He's like, oh, you're not my Spider-Man? Oh, that's weird. So he's like trying to help him and actually saves him at one point in the movie. Yep. You know, and again, that's, you know, minor spoiler, but, you know, but then his motivation partway in just, oh, I'm just gonna attack Spider-Man now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there can be some of the. I would say that for the villains, while they kept, I do want to say that they managed to keep to the spirit of the villains. I feel like every single
definitely
they don't take the MCU can kind of do this thing where they knock the wind out of some of the characters, especially if you're really powerful. Yeah. But they really don't do that for any of these characters. They play most of these characters pretty straight. Yeah, the MCU humor can interact with them, but it doesn't diminish them. They still are very powerful and very very scary.
They still feel like the villains from their movies.
Yes.
You know, obviously the standout was Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin.
Yes.
I think next to him was Alfred Molina's Doc Ock.
Yep.
Those were kind of the two best defined villains in the movie. Jamie Foxx, his performance was great, but he was still just, I want power. I'm evil. I'm, you know, getting to be Jamie Foxx again. I don't have to be blue.
Yes. I will say that Jamie Foxx here I feel like I did get even a little more than I did from his original movie. I felt like you kind of understood why he was being a villain a little more.
Like,
where he... Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
I think that it's no fan that I am not too much of a fan of the Mark Webb interpretation of Spider-Man. I'm more of a Raimi fanboy.
Oh, I am too, but I still think that the Webb films are on the underrated side.
For sure. I will say I was a little jaded. I'll say that I was jaded as they were coming out. It's been some time. I've had some time to genuflect, look in my soul, and I've come to say, yeah, they were pretty good.
I mean, 2 was definitely messy in a lot of parts, but that's what happens with studio interference.
But the parts of Amazing Spider-Man 2 that really worked for me. And I would say Jamie Foxx's performance of Electro was pretty good, but it was just obscured by all this. And by all this, I mean the blue. It's amazing what taking away. Sometimes makeup is good. And then sometimes you might want to lay off the makeup, my dudes.
I definitely like Jamie Foxx more in this movie. He was really good. He had a little bit more, like it didn't feel like he had. It feels like his character arc was completed.
Yes.
Like we saw up to the halfway point in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And then that was plucked right from that and put into this, the No Way Home. And his character arc picked up from there from going full, I want power, to kind of realizing where he went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing about this. And well, actually, just like quickly, the most underutilized villain was Lizard.
Yeah.
But he was also very one note in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
By which I mean in the first movie. He was underrated too in Amazing Spider-Man.
And that's a shame, because if you read the comics, there's this whole Shakespearean tragedy to the Lizard, and the Lizard can be played like kind of to be an interesting villain.
If they did Lizard like they did in the 90s Spider-Man the animated series,
yeah,
I think that would have made a more compelling and more fully realized villain in Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which would have transferred over, because now we would have the payoff at the end of No Way Home.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean,
that's film. So we did filmmaking.
That's kind of writing and touching upon the characters, mainly the villains. But
mm-hmm.
I do want to talk about the general performances in general.
Sure.
Willem Dafoe as like the main villain stole the show. He was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It was we got more of the I don't want to do this. I'm the goblin. No, Osborn, you have to do this. You have to get him. And, leading up to kind of his new kind of look with his goblin suit and so on. And,
mm-hmm.
Which they did the purple.
Yeah.
They did they somehow gave everybody a more comic book accurate suit, without making it silly.
Yes,
he was practically wearing the purple tunic.
Yes,
and it looked good and menacing, and he had the hood.
Yep.
And Willem Dafoe's goblin face was perfect.
Yep.
They just had to paint him green.
Yeah.
But so Willem Dafoe stole the show. Alfred Molina did a fantastic job. He always does. He's just a fantastic actor.
A fantastic actor.
He again was second in stole the show as far as the villains go. His performance was great.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that the MCU humor didn't always land, he always sold it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Foxx, great.
Mm-hmm.
Still kind of one note. But then again, it's his arc finishing in this movie. Lizard, more one note.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good to see the actor come back for him.
Yeah.
They just did Sandman dirty, man.
They kind of had to do some finagling with Sandman.
It's he didn't even turn looking human. He just stayed looking like sand the whole time. And
that's true.
And I don't know why. I mean, it's possible that Thomas Hayden Church, I hope I said his name right, couldn't totally come back to do a lot of in-person shooting, so he did voiceover, and that's why they did sand instead of just doing a full 3D representation of him. They kept him as sand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But so I guess briefly let's just talk about the...
Of course, I do want to point out the MCU performances, the actors for the MCU were...
that's where
they were... Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just saying, let's just quickly touch upon the heroes now.
Oh, okay, sorry. We really like the villains of this movie, guys.
No, the villains were incredible. If it wasn't... Well, finally my ringer's back on, but now we're shooting, and now I'm mad. Attack the phone's heart! Yes, we love the villains in this movie, not just for nostalgia's sake, and we'll talk a bit more about that when we talk about some of the fan service in the movie. Mm-hmm. But, my back was bothering me today. No.
Yeah.
So
want me to correct that for you?
So, Tom Holland, I think this was his best performance of Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that it really gave Tom some room to really stretch his acting chops.
I mean, I think it gave everybody the opportunity to really act.
Yeah.
And do some serious drama stuff.
Yes.
Zendaya was fantastic.
Yes, fantastic.
She was. It's an interesting arc that her MJ had in these 3 movies, where she's like, I'm anti-joke, this satire and so on, to being a little more open, to now she's really more open and honest about what she wants.
Yes.
And her desires, passions, and dreams in this movie.
Yes.
This is the best of Zendaya's performance as MJ, because again, they gave her the situations to really act.
Yes, they really provided the situations to allow for Zendaya and Tom's best performances.
I cried 3 times in this movie, and 2 of them were Tom and Zendaya scenes.
Oh, for sure. And Tom's friend, Ned.
I forget the actor's name.
Sorry, guy.
Hang on, give me a second.
You're a great actor too.
You talk about his performance while I find the actor.
The dude is always funny. He has this way of Ned Leeds has this very earnest approach of being an actor. You never get the feeling that you always get the feeling that he's just trying to be helpful. And you always get the feeling that he's just trying to be there for his friend.
Jacob Batalon.
Jacob Batalon.
I hope I pronounced his last name right.
Jacob Batalon, you are a very great actor. We very much appreciate you in these Spider-Man films.
But just on that note, showing him, we'll talk about it in spoilers later. Look who they finally threw on. Like, now that it's out, now it's okay to tell everybody.
Yeah.
But actually, let me see. I said his name, Thomas Hayden Church, right?
Okay.
But yeah, yes, Jacob Batalon, fantastic as Ned, like always. The actor's bald in real life.
Really?
That's a wig he wears as Ned.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really good wig. It's a really good wig. But no, he got to act and do some drama stuff, and it was cool. It was good. He was in the 3rd scene that made me cry.
Oh, really? I'm curious about this one.
Well, no, like you know that one scene where they're all with Peter after that thing happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like this movie got really heavy at points. Benedict Cumberbatch.
He's a thespian, of course, so he brings it.
Well, so is Alfred Molina. He's classically trained, you know.
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch, fucking fantastic. You couldn't ask for a better cast Doctor Strange. I don't even know how they found him.
Yeah. I don't know how they paid him.
I mean, they paid a certain actor a large chunk of change to come back.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in spoilers because it just shows how confident Marvel and Sony were that this movie's going to make all the money. And at the point of the recording of this video, it is December 19th. It's 2 days after the movie's officially out. Technically 3 days if you count the Thursday showings. This movie is on its way to making $240 million opening weekend.
Okay. Which
is the largest opening for a post-COVID era movie.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's cinematography, that's writing, that's characters. Let's talk really quick about editing, and then we'll get into spoilers.
Sure.
That's where the fun's gonna happen.
Yes.
So what did you think about the editing in general?
I think, again, this movie, partially due to the plotting helped to, everything kind of had a sequential, it went boom, boom, boom. You understood why a thing was happening, and the editing kind of enabled that. So you never felt lost. You completely understood what the characters were doing and why they were doing it. So I think that on that front, it was pretty well done.
I definitely think that the editing was tight. Some of the things felt a little off to me. There were certain monologues that were going on where they were like cutting away to some points. You know, especially like it seemed like they were doing that mostly when like Willem Dafoe was really starting to chew the scenery and really starting to ham it up, which is what you want that character to do, by the way.
Yes.
You want him to ham it up because that's who that character is, and Willem Dafoe's great at that. But they were like cutting away from his physical performance at points, and I wish there was more of a reveal to his face, because when you do finally see his face in the movie, it's like you see him, and you know this has all already been talked about. He shows up briefly in the bridge fight in full goblin costume, and it looks great in this movie. And then the very next shot of him, it just cuts right to his face.
Yeah.
So like, there's not even a tilt or a pan up or a
I got
boom, like fucking Sam Raimi, the Force coming right up to your face, showing of his face. It's just, oh, here's Willem Dafoe. I feel like there was extra stuff shot that in order to make a specific runtime, which is about 2.5 hours, I feel like they cut some stuff out. Because every now and again a character will come in and say, oh yeah, well, there was this thing going on. And you're like, okay, so they're obviously caught up to speed on what's going on. How do they know what's going on, and why are they so just accepting of this multiverse thing?
Yeah.
So, I feel like there was extra scenes, and we can talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah.
Like, as far as editing, that's really all I gotta say. Everything's really tight, but there's some stuff that I would have done different if I was editing the movie.
Yeah, and to its credit, like my friend here mentioned, the editing definitely helped to enable the movie to feel very flowing. So I didn't even feel like it was 2 hours. It just went by. To me, it just went by an entertaining pace. I didn't even really feel the time that much.
It was very well paced. It did not feel like a 2.5 hour movie. It flowed very well, but they also kept everything engaging and exciting.
Yes.
Even when it slowed the pace down to do something serious, it flowed very well because you emotionally cared about what was going on.
Yes.
So here's a little warning. We're gonna get into.
Quick thing before that. Quick thoughts before we head to spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, go see the movie. If you're a Spider-Man fan, if you're a Marvel fan, if you're a superhero fan, we recommend it. And now, spoilers.
Yes, spoilers. But yeah, I totally agree with everything. As far as it goes, there are certain things I would have changed. I give it a 9.5.
Yeah.
It's like little things I would have changed. I would have pushed it to a 10, but 9.5 I would say is totally fair for this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so spoilers now.
Spoilers.
Okay, so spoilers. Fucking, I think immediately first one, fucking Toby's back.
They got him. Oh
fucking
my God.
Tobey Maguire's back.
Yo.
Which, like I was saying earlier, they paid a certain actor a lot of money. Supposedly, Tobey Maguire was approached about this movie and said, "I want $15 million to do the movie."
Wow.
Now, think about this. For the 11 minutes, which I guess there's some kind of middle ground here that shows that Robert Downey Jr. is obviously a bigger actor, but Robert Downey Jr. for his homecoming stuff only got, and again, I say only got paid $11 million for his 10 minutes of screen time in Homecoming. They probably laughed at Maguire, wrote him a check, and because they knew that this movie, I meant to say this earlier because I was trying to be, let's talk about this movie, but now it's spoilers. It's fan talk now.
It's fan talk. You've entered the fan zone.
In the words of the cyber nerds, because I love those guys. I fucking love those guys. It's that movie was absolute madness, bro.
It was absolute. Oh gosh.
As a fan, I loved that movie. It was so good. It is the best Spider-Man movie we have ever gotten, in my opinion. And I think that it just goes to show what it took in this movie to make it better than Spider-Man 2.
Gotcha.
Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2, because now we have 3 Spider-Man 2s.
Yeah. Ain't that some shit?
So yeah, fucking Tobey's back. Andrew Garfield's back. Ned's Magic.
Ned's Magic.
Bring me Peter. It's like, show me Peter Parker. And it's like, hey, Peter! And then Andrew jumps through the portal. There was some funny MCU stuff. And Ned's like, okay, let me try again. I want to see Peter Parker. And then Tobey Maguire's kind of nonchalantly looking, steps through the portal. Hey, I hope it's okay. Step through this portal, and it's gone. like, where was he? What was he doing when that portal opened?
You know what's interesting? I like how in this version of... I like how seeing Tobey Maguire kind of like from other people's point of view, he's like this super polite dude.
Yeah.
Where in the Tobey Maguire movies, like the Sam Raimi movies, since you're always seeing it from his point of view, there's so much drama. But just seeing him, you actually just kind of see him as just this quiet, timid guy.
Because now we're looking at him through the eyes of people who don't live in this like specific romanticized, idealized world that is the Sam Raimi films. Because they're in this very peculiar world where like this stuff is kind of normal, and it's like very much this idealized comic booky world.
Yeah.
Where, as comic booky as the Holland movies get, it embraces the comic books, but shows it in a real world thing.
Yes.
Where the Andrew Garfield movies like try to be like Christopher Nolan does Spider-Man.
Yes.
The banter and writing between the Spider-Men themselves were all great.
They were all great. They all just reached your heartwarming. They all just... It's like things you always wanted to hear these characters say to each other.
Yeah. Which is funny because years ago, like, I think that Homecoming was new when we were talking about this. We were like hanging out. I think it was around, I don't know, it's probably around this time of year, Christmas time, New Year's, you, me, and a couple other friends of ours just hanging out. Fucking, I was making food. You know, I was like cooking or something, and we're all just talking. What if they made a movie where all the Spider-Men meet up?
Yeah.
And almost all the ideas I pitched in like 2017 was Spider-Man Homecoming.
I think so. 17, 16.
Like 2016, 2017, all of the ideas I pitched were basically done in this movie.
You know what? I got a gag for you. Here's, in my hand, I hold the gift of prophecy.
And I almost can't flinch because of wrestling. I'm trained to walk into punches now. Like, how fucked up is that? I walk into punches so I can make it look good.
So he didn't feel that at all.
I mean, I felt the wind. It felt nice to talk in here. But anyway, so Toby's back, Andrew's back. Of course, all the villains are back. I absolutely loved, which was actually technically the third or fourth scene. I kind of like teared up a little. Peter met Otto Octavius again.
Yeah. Oh, that was nice.
That scene was so heartwarming, and just seeing, and because like, okay, so like partway into the movie, again, you see it in the trailers. You know, it's like, oh, Tom Holland takes that box from Doctor Strange. No one knew what this box was. It's the box containing the spell that'll close the universes and send the Raimi villains and the Garfield villains back to their own universes where they're gonna die. And Tom Holland is like, well, we can't let them die. I want to save them. So they go on this thing where they're trying to cure them. And we have this great sequence of Norman Osborn, who's back to his senses for a little while, working with MCU Tom Holland Peter Parker to create devices that will cure the other villains.
And you know what? I do want to point out, that was an interesting scene with watching Norman and Peter and MCU Peter kind of have this moment where they were developing the tech
and bonding for a second. So, like, just, Peter, if you ever needed a job and were willing to commute to another universe,
yeah,
and then they fix or finish the device that will fix the inhibitor chip on Ock's arms.
Yes,
and then they bring Ock back, and just that one moment. You know, Ock's there. It's like, there's quiet. For the first time in so long, there's no voices in my head. I'm like, wow.
The Shakespearean acting just kicked in.
And seeing... Because, like, they established in this movie, in the Raimi films, Otto and Norman knew each other.
Yeah, that was something.
And must have been close at some point.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
And then... You know, which also is funny because there's I'll see if I can find it, and I'll kind of like see if I can put it up in here. There's this behind the scenes footage from Spider-Man 2 of Norman Osborn wearing the not Norman Osborn, of Willem Dafoe wearing the Ock goggles and strapped in the rig with the arms, and he's doing the scene where the inhibitor chip gets broken.
Oh,
and it's just this fun little thing.
Not more chest. They're better acting? Here we go. Because if they want better acting, you've got to... Here's what they want. All right, practicing and action.
This precious target is the fuel that makes this project go. There are only 25 pounds on the planet. I want to thank Harry Osborn and Osborn Industries for providing it.
Excellent. It's more what there is. Hi. Thank you. That's how we want it done. Okay. You'll be a bit like the Titanic, but have a go. It's funny.
That, you know, just because Willem Dafoe was obviously in Spider-Man 2. He had some cameos in it.
Oh,
and he just hopped in the rig, and Sam Raimi was like, well, here's take one of practice. It's just really fun. Like, they had a lot of fun on set.
Wow, that's cool.
I'll see if I can send it to you.
Yeah, I like that.
Go on.
So, yeah, I do want to mention, I think that it's very interesting that the approach here in this movie is, like, normally, like, in superhero films, the objective is to punch the bad dude until they stop being bad.
Yeah. Or in Batman's case, break every bone in their body and do it again because they're too far gone.
Yes. But in here, there was this really interesting kind of idea where it's like, well, we're not really trying to beat them up. We're really trying to, like... They really kind of treat the super villainness of each of the villains as, like, something that can be treated.
Yeah, so what was that thing Toby said? It's time to cure some ass.
He's just in that Toby way.
Which is weird because, like, his Spider-Man never cursed. And it was weird hearing his Spider-Man say ass.
Yeah, I just want to go language. That would have been perfect.
But
just language.
in the MCU movies, Tom Holland almost says "what the fuck" at the start of the movie.
Yeah.
Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He's like, "What the?" And then it quickly cuts away. And everyone's, "Oh, you're Spider-Man's girlfriend. You're Spider-Man's girlfriend." And of course, some like Karen was in the crowd when Peter pulled MJ away. Spider-Man hit me. Spider-Man hit me.
Always one.
Everybody gets one.
Yeah.
Why didn't we get the Family Guy Spider-Man in this one?
Oh, speaking of, I do think that they go with the whole revealing the identity. In the beginning of the movie, of course, Spider-Man's identity had been revealed, so they reveal why this would be stressful for, well, anyone.
Yeah.
But they also highlight...
did a really good job of that, too.
Yeah, so you really do understand why Peter, who is young and probably hasn't gone through something... Well, I mean, he's fought, like, aliens, but he hasn't, like, faced a social situation like this before.
He hasn't had this kind of situation thrown his way. And it was great because it was, like, a very kind of realistic representation of what this would have. Like, some people were for him, some people were on his side, some people were trying to ride his fame, some people hated him and wanted him gone. Yep. All that was handled very well in this movie.
Yep. Strange even does put it pretty well at a point. He does say, it's not the spell that's the issue, it's you. Which is a little mean.
I mean, yeah, but it's like, it's like the line from the trailer. It's like, you're trying to live two different worlds. This is the movie where Tom Holland, where his Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah, he was called Spider-Man in the other movies, and I'll call him Spider-Man in all those movies, and they're good movies, and they're good Spider-Man movies. But his Peter Parker has an arc in this movie where he finally really grows up. And he makes the hard choices, and he really becomes Spider-Man.
Hey, I got one for you.
Yeah.
You see, Parker, you gotta be the kind of man who's willing to make the hard choices.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more!
So like, he really earned the title of Spider-Man in this movie. And we even get a tease of an even more comic book accurate suit at the end of the movie.
Oh, that suit was gorgeous.
Oh, it was gorgeous. It was so good.
That was it was a beautiful shot.
And honestly, the swinging scene at the end could lead right into the PS4 game.
We were saying, okay.
Well, let's be fair. He was saying that, and then I'm like, you know what? You're right. He could be swinging right to fight Kingpin.
Okay, we are talking spoilers, so this is something I'm geeking out about. If you played the Spider-Man PS4 game, you know how the intro leads into Peter. He's in an abandoned apartment. It's all disheveled. There are a couple Easter eggs about him doing Spider-Man stuff, but the game picks off with you just going out into the city to fight crime and fight the Kingpin. And it leads you to think, okay, Spidey's been at this for a while. He's on his own. You get the idea. This movie, the way they pick it up, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the prequel leading into that exact scenario.
I mean, it's all owned by Sony.
Yeah, that's also true.
It's all owned by Sony.
If they played the cheeky move where they said that the PS4 Spider-Man was the Tom Holland Spider-Man,
I would buy it.
And you know what?
Especially since that new face model that they have.
Exactly. Oh my God. You don't think?
I know that they said, hey, we picked this new actor because it looked a little closer to Yuri Lowenthal, and that's kind of true, but it looks closer to Tom Holland.
Yeah.
And all this Spider-Man stuff is coming out in tandem with this game, which is why I think they pushed off Spider-Man and Marvel's Avengers on the PS4 and Xbox, which it's not going to be on Xbox or PC, it's just on the PlayStation version right now. Why they waited to put Spider-Man in the game closer, like a month before the new movie comes out, because the Spider-Man hype is real right now.
Yes.
As you can see, again, I'm in as much red and blue as I own.
Sorry, guys, I didn't really have an outfit for it, but I have representation.
I was tempted to go to Walmart to buy a new Spider-Man shirt just for today, but I was.
As you should buy Spider-Man merch.
but I was just too damn lazy to do that.
But okay, so that was my little geek out moment. Oh, of course, if you're MCU clued in, there are okay, let's talk about Spidey first, and then we can talk about bigger MCU stuff first.
Okay.
So, of course, all this we talked about those Spidey cameos, which of course was great to see,
and they were, which again, I just want to like just kind of reiterate that I thought it was great seeing these characters' reactions to like the Raimi Spider-Man, because it's like, well, you kind of this old guy, you've been at this a while, and it's like, you know, and again, because like we're seeing it from other people's point of view. Yes, he is very polite.
Yeah,
so polite in that.
I think Garfield's came across as a little more. He didn't seem rude, but he seemed a little maybe.
He was very broken.
Yeah, you just felt that he was just sad.
Just felt this weight every time he was on screen, when he like points where he's trying to be happy and jovial. Like there were just so many scenes where he really just needed somebody.
He just needed a hug.
You know, like I'm really happy to be doing this with you guys. You know, I always wanted brothers.
Yeah.
And then they're about to go into to the final battle. It's like, wait, guys. I love you guys. I'm like, he's so hurt and broken. And like, I don't know how soon after Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2 that this movie is.
Yeah.
Because he, at one point says, you know, like, he's got back in the suit and he's been at this a while, and over time he's just become more violent and stopped pulling his punches. And I'm like, how far is this? Weeks? Months?
Years?
Maybe a year or two, a couple of years after. I really don't know.
Oh, you know what other scene I liked? I'm trying to remember the exact scene, but I think...
My back!
Yes, the my back scene was also great. Okay, so for context, poor Toby, poor Maguire was having a little bit of back issues. He's been out this a while, guys. And my boy Andrew is like, hold on, I got this. Let me just crack your back real quick. Just gives him a nice little, and he's like, oh, that feels good.
Yeah, good. It looks like, yeah,
good. Oh, it feels good.
It's good.
That was nice.
I like some of the, you know, the banter between the Spider-Men was great, because it's like they're all trying to do their things, but Toby and Andrew have never worked in a team. So it was interesting seeing Tom Holland Spider-Man take the leadership role and coordinate them in a team.
Yeah, that was...
Now, there was a great joke there. I want you guys to hear that joke for
yourself.
For yourself, because it's a good one.
Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, the one scene I wanted to mention was, I think Toby and Garfield were kind of just chatting just before things started to hit the fan, and I think Garfield said to Toby, "You're amazing," and Toby said, "Well, I think he said to Toby and to Tom, he said, "You guys are amazing," and then Toby looked at Andrew and said, "Well, wait, hold on, because I think you're amazing."
Yeah, like...
And at that point, that was so touching. It caught me off guard.
This little like therapy scene for like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in this movie was just so hurt. Like every successful thing he did, it was so emotional in this movie.
Yes.
Like when he fucking caught when he caught MJ when she was falling.
Yes.
Like, it was relatively silent. He catches her. They land, and he's just getting really emotional, and he's trying not to cry. Then it cuts to like Toby doing some cool stuff.
Yeah.
That was so okay. Look, I'm gonna say this now here too. Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man. absolutely 100% my favorite Spider-Man.
Yep.
If you ask me who the best is, I would say, especially now, Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man on screen. Because he really understands the psychology behind Spider-Man, and he captures that very well on screen. But just something special about Tobey's Spider-Man. He is my favorite, and I will never waver on that. It was the biggest thrill for me was seeing him back.
Yes.
And I was so happy. Like, I triggered the whole rest of the audience to start cheering when I started laughing and going, yeah! You know, they're fucking freaking out.
So yeah, again, so the moments between the Spider-Man was great, and the moments between even the villains had like interesting like banner, like they were like the Mark Webb ones were kind of looking at the Tobey Maguire ones like. We're looking at the Sam Raimi ones like, who are you? And they were like, who are you?
Yeah,
who are you?
There was just so much good stuff in there, man. It was so great. I like the little hint toward Miles.
Yeah.
In it, where, you know, Jamie Foxx sees that the Spider-Man that his Spider-Man was Andrew Garfield, and he's like, oh, you know, you're like always in Queens and helping out all the poor kids and stuff. I just kind of thought that you were like black. Yeah, and he was like, oh, you know, Spider-Man's black, and he's like, and like I like how Garfield's Peter didn't know how to react, and he's just like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I'll say that again. I'll say that
I'm so sorry.
I will say that even though I wasn't a fan of perhaps the story of the Mark Webb films, Garfield did have certain mannerisms and certain isms that jived with me. I can't quite put it, but when he was like interacting with the neighborhood and he was down with the neighborhood, I was like, well, you earned my respect.
Because he was kind of that, like, cool guy, Peter Parker.
Yes.
Like, kind of like the Ultimate Universe Peter Parker, where he's not exactly this total loser kid, but he still gets picked on at school, but he's, like, kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know?
He's kind of cool. But for some reason still
I liked that, you know, and again, just like that first scene where they're like talking to like Tom's Spider-Man on the roof, where, you know, again, major spoiler, Aunt May dies.
Yeah, that was sad.
Like we were talking, or like I said in the trailer reaction, either May or Ned was going to die in this movie. May died in this movie, and obviously, you know, Peter was totally broken up about it. So, you know, they both come to talk to, you know, MCU Spider-Man, and it's like, hey, look, you know, and Tom's like, you know, like no, don't tell me you know what this feels like. Because he doesn't know them totally. He knows, oh, here's this other two guys. One guy's in a Spider-Man costume, and then, you know, they're like talking about their losses, and, you know, Toby's like, you know, I lost my Uncle Ben, and it was my fault, and he was like, you know, worked up about it, and then again, which leads me to how fresh was Gwen, because then Andrew goes, oh, you know, I lost Gwen, and she's like, you know, she was my MJ. And she's so fucking emotional about it.
Yep, it's
like,
still fresh for him.
I didn't cry, but I really teared up.
Yeah, that was...
This movie hit me so hard in so many places. Like I felt shit I never thought I would in a Spider-Man movie.
I will say, also, even though we could have predicted that Aunt May would pass, it did catch me a little. It did catch me when I realized what was the way they kind of played it off. Oh, we're doing spoilers.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, because it was just sudden.
I think it was interesting because you had Goblin, and of course when his evil side kind of came out, he's just a vindictive bastard, and he'll go after your family.
The heart, Osborn, the heart.
And you know what? He went after his heart.
Yeah, exactly.
So I also think that was pretty interesting. Goblin realized, oh hey, this Peter Parker. Wait a minute, there's a Peter Parker here, which means he has loved ones I can destroy.
And but like, you know, so like Goblin killed May.
Yeah,
And
super sad.
that was a heavy scene. That was so sad. And again, Tom Holland's performance was so good.
Yeah, to anybody who says that this Spider-Man hasn't been through stuff, I just want to put up a little tally real quick. First off, this guy...
Well, you know he lost his Uncle Ben.
We know he lost his Uncle Ben.
Spider-Man.
We know that he got dusted, so he's actually died and come back. Mm-hmm. So that's some psychological trauma. He lost Tony, who was like an adoptive father to him.
He was the Funkle.
He was the Funkle. We know that... Well, he kind of dated He kind of dated his...
supervillain's daughter.
A supervillain's daughter, so maybe not tragic, but definitely odd. Definitely gonna affect you psychologically. He was psychologically manipulated by a mentor in Mysterio.
Yeah.
So, you know, probably some trust issues there.
Had the whole world learn his secret, spent as public enemy number one for a while.
Yep.
And then his Aunt May dies.
Yep.
And I don't know if we should say the final thing. Let's leave that final thing for everybody to watch, because that's some heavy shit.
Yeah, that one was that was pretty like, aw. That's like, aw.
Yeah, and like I was sad watching that. But the apartment he ends up in at the end of the movie looks like an almost exact for Tobey's apartment in Spider-Man 2.
That's true too.
Like I was waiting, I was really hoping it didn't happen, but I was waiting to hear from down the hall. Rent?
Maybe. We gotta review, because I'm pretty sure I heard rent's due from someone. But I think it was just a gruff New York guy.
I don't know. Needless to say, we loved this fucking movie.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's the greatest movie ever made. I would be on the edge of saying it might be one of the greatest superhero films ever made. It's definitely the most ambitious comic book movie ever made. Up to this point.
This is gonna sound odd. We're both Spider-Man fans.
Yes.
But, obviously. But...
I'm clearly more of one than you.
Yeah,
I have a spider on my shirt.
Yeah, obviously.
Right.
So, but for me, this particular movie is good, but in context. So, whereas you can watch No Way Home and Homecoming and pretty much get it, for this one, you really need that impact. So, I would recommend, honestly, just binging the Raimi films and the Mark Webb films and then this one to get the full effect.
I totally get that, and I was planning on doing that, but I was just so busy because I had work and literally back-to-back shows, wrestling and production, and finally made my return to the ring officially in a singles match again.
Oh,
and
if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I did actually manage to watch the first and second Raimi films, which are some of my favorites.
Yeah.
And it has been a hot second since I've watched them, and I'm a little more critical now, and it's been so long since these movies came out, and I was wondering...
That you hate them now, right?
Yeah, and I was wondering...
Oh, you just totally agreed with me?
Well, I was wondering, is it gonna hit as hard? It hit harder.
Because now you have it in a more grown-up mind.
Yeah.
And especially Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, it hits even up. As a kid, I watched these films and I was like, wow, these mean a lot to me. As an adult, understanding the story, I empathize even more with Peter now. I feel so much more.
But yeah, I was planning on binging all the other Spider-Man movies, but I remember all of them so fondly and vividly. I almost didn't need to, but I still really wanted to, but I just didn't have the time. Would I have reacted stronger if I did? Maybe, but I think I reacted plenty strong watching shit. But I mean, I guess kind of last thing, just kind of piggybacking off of the editing a little bit, which will be kind of like my closing thoughts on some of the things. Like at points, it felt like Toby and Andrew's Spider-Man, felt like they kind of knew roughly what was going on because they weren't too surprised about the sudden multiverse thing. Yeah. And they approached the situation like they had just dealt with something like it.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
So I feel like there's more footage that was shot and put in the movie of them that was cut for time reasons.
Yes.
Because it's like, hey, we kind of know what's going on, so we know you need our help, and so on. It's like, so I feel like there's an extended cut of this movie because they did put out an extended version of Far From Home.
Oh, okay.
On video. No, it wasn't even put on video. They did a special IMAX showing of Far From Home for 2 weeks or something. Oh. And it was an extended cut that was maybe 15 or 20 minutes longer or something.
Oh, okay.
I might be misremembering some of that, so don't totally quote me. Again, the comments will fill us in on all that. But yes, they did an extended showing of Far From Home with extra footage. I'm wondering if they might do that with this too. But I want them to just put it on Blu-ray with all the extended stuff.
Yes. Oh, sort of piggybacking off editing, I would say that maybe my biggest issue with this film, and again, I love this film, and I think it was exactly as hype as everybody is saying, but I think maybe one of the things that I took issue with was just kind of having the multiverse characters just on the same page quite so fast.
Yeah, they I mean, as far as the villains, the Spider-Man goes, because I feel like the Spider-Man would be keen to help each other regardless.
Yes, for sure. I think there could have been a little more. I think there could have been I think that the Spider-Men were instantly like, yeah, we gotta save the day, and that's cool. But I think
that's what Spider-Man does. He tries to save the day.
Oh, yeah. I think it could have just been, maybe they had, little arguments about how to go about it. Maybe one of them could have just said, maybe they could have been nah, let's just send them back to our universe and we'll deal with them there. Or they could have been no, it's...
Well, you have to look at what the circumstances of that was. They were all pulled from a point in time before, probably minutes before they died.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in Toby's case, where his Spider-Man is a guy who's in his 40s now.
Mm-hmm.
He has a wife. He's married to MJ.
We're pretty sure.
Well, no, because he said that he's married to his MJ.
He said he was married?
I mean, it was heavily implied.
Yeah, I think it's heavily implied. I'm willing to bet, but if somebody goes...
I want them to do Spider-Man 4, but have him raising Mayday parties from the What If comics back in the day.
So,
but
I think it's very strongly implied they probably got together.
Yeah. But, so, especially with, his,
His Peter.
With his Peter, who's now a guy in his, probably late 30s, early 40s now, who's married and starting a family, or might be married and starting a family. He, of who is now of who, I was going based off of the end of Spider-Man 3, because it would pick up years after that if they did Spider-Man 4 now, where is now over a decade since most of his villains have died.
Mm-hmm.
So sending them back, and they stated in the movie, to send them back to the points in time where they were.
Mm-hmm.
or at least heavily implied that would be the circumstances.
Yeah, it's a little wishy-washy on exactly. You take a little bit of story initiative, but we're led to believe if they go back, they'll pretty much die as they do, or they'll meet the fates that they do in their movies.
Although, since with some of them, their outcomes are different, and like this, because we were talking about it in the trailer reaction, Ak does turn over and help them.
Yes.
So I think he would come back in a much better place.
Yes. Speaking of, so you think like does this ending retcon the previous movies such that they do not die? Or is it just...
It's possible.
Or do you think it's like... So is it like for Doc Ock, let's take Doc Ock, and we're talking spoilers here again.
Yeah.
So for Doc Ock, we know that he was willing to sacrifice himself for the machine and all that good stuff. But now that this movie has happened and he goes back, does this now mean he still sacrifices himself, but he's more happy about it? Well, does he just think of a different way?
Yeah, I have to look at the point when he was taking, because he said, and I almost had Peter, because he was
choking him out.
The point in Spider-Man 2 where he had him by the throat with the claw, and he knew it was Peter. He took the mask off, and Peter's like convincing him. He's like, "No, this isn't you, Doc. You got to be stronger than the arms." And then he got piffed out of that scene.
Yeah. So okay, maybe Doc and Norman are tricky because we do know that they actually die.
Yeah.
Sandman could be interesting because he has the least to lose by going back, and he has everything to gain, and he wants to go back. He actively wants to go back.
He wants to go back, and I'm assuming it's because of his daughter.
And he's back human too, so he really gets the most out of this situation.
That is another spoiler there too, which I said I wanted to hold off on while we were in the car. They did the reverse of him becoming Sandman.
Yes.
When he was cured, he was a man made of sand becoming a man again.
Oh!
Where he was like kind of forming back into Flint Marko instead of a broken man trying to literally and figuratively pull himself back together. Mm-hmm. And again, one of the most beautiful sequences I've seen on film in Spider-Man 3, where Sandman's rising and forming again, the locket of his daughter, totally silent, the music and visuals tell the story. Which that scene is so separate from everything else in that movie. It's like somebody snuck in a secret art film in that movie.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's interesting because the villains of the previous movies get happy endings, and even the Spider-Man of previous movies get happy endings, or at least get reassurance that what they did was good in the long run.
Yeah,
but it comes at a heavy price.
Yeah, that's like, it was great because the villains got their redemption, and the villains, we got closure to the villains, and they reconciled with their Spider-Man.
Yes.
And again, I will say again, I loved the scene where, because since Ock was cured of the control of the tentacles, we have a scene where Toby meets Ock again during the final fight. Mm-hmm. And it's just this touching scene where two friends feel like they are reunited. Especially in Toby's case, of who would be over a decade after his Doc Ock was dead. That same Doc Ock, technically, who would be dead.
And I do want to mention there is this nice touching little Easter egg of sorts. I think it's
Matthew Cox.
I think it's pretty well known that in the Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, the tentacles influence Doc Ock to a great degree. And you can tell because they're red, and so that means that Doc is evil at that moment. Mm-hmm. But when he was interacting with Toby, you kind of see the arms, and they just glow like just this white light. And it's like such a wholesome scene, seeing this once menacing, like, this menacing villain just become using that kind of intelligence and using his intelligence.
It's like
to help you.
If in the Spider-Man 2 game from Insomniac, like I was saying in the previous video, like if he reunites with his Doc Ock, that's what that scene would be like. Mm-hmm. Like Peter meeting his mentor again, and like truly meeting his mentor again, and being helped by him. Mm-hmm.
So that was really nice and touching.
My back!
But
I love that. I just love that so much.
I like how they managed to make the Goblin and Tom's Spider-Man like just instantly, like Goblin just has beef with Spider-Man, so it's just funny. It's just like new universe.
I don't care what Spider-Man it is. I'm gonna beat the shit out of him.
Yup, just instantly has beef. New universe? Is there a Spider-Man? Time to hurt him.
I'm gonna powerbomb him through 3 flights of floor. Which they had some drag out brawls.
Yeah, they had some drag out brawls. That's why we were saying like Norman really is like, okay guys, follow my lead. We're really gonna hurt some spider people today.
And like again, I give it up to Willem Dafoe, who had a condition in the movie to come back on and do it, where he said, you know, I'll do it as long as it's not just a cameo or I'm not just filling in close-ups. You know, I want to do the action stuff too, because that's fun.
Yeah.
But it also, like he mentioned, it gave an integrity to the performance and the fights, knowing that there's an actual actor giving life to the performance and it wasn't just computer generated.
Yep. And you know what? Willem Dafoe warned us in his interview. He said Goblin has a point to make. Mm-hmm. Oof.
And, you know, last thing before signing off on this, because we're probably over an hour
Oh,
on
jeez,
this.
already?
Probably over an hour on this. Costumes. Like, what did they think of the costumes?
Man.
Just throughout for everyone.
Oh, the costumes were beautiful. I think that... Well, you get a lot of wardrobe changes for Tom's. Mm. And I think
that's because we got a lot of toys we got to sell.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, I bought for my nephew a couple of toys for Christmas based on the new Tom Holland costumes, or at least like 2 of them. The integrated suit, where he got the bit of the nano suit back, which formed the gold spider on his like Far From Home suit, and the black and gold suit. Which didn't get a lot of screen time. No, it wasn't. But they didn't explain it at all either. Mm. He just had this black and gold suit.
Mm. Oh, no. That was explained as, I think Strange, like, inverted it out.
Well,
no, I don't know why he did.
No, because, like, he gave him the gauntlet that'll zap the guys into the Sanctum Sanctorum's Witness Dungeon. Yes. But that didn't change the rest of his suit, because he still had the regular suit.
Yeah, I forget exactly what the black suit was for, but I think Strange did something to it.
I mean, I'm probably going to watch this movie like 5 more times.
Yeah, we'll need to watch it after that one.
But from what I saw, they didn't explain the black and gold suit. He just...
Speaking of black suits, just before we sign off, you know what we gotta talk about, the post-credit scenes you recorded?
Oh, yeah. Venom, a piece of the symbiote was left behind in Tom Holland's universe.
Yep, so that's how they're gonna explain that.
And the second post-credit scene was just a trailer for Doctor Strange 2.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It looks good.
Yeah, I would say, again...
I didn't know Elizabeth Olsen was related to the Olsen twins. Apparently she is, and that blew my mind when I learned that a couple days ago.
Yeah. Yeah. She was kind of, interestingly, she was kind of the undersold Olsen twin, and now look at her.
Now she's in the MCU and making more than her more than her sisters.
So the lesson is, join the MCU.
Yeah.
If you want money.
If you can.
If you can, for money. So yeah, and I'm actually pretty excited for the Doctor Strange into the Method to Madness.
It's
Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness.
Thank you.
Who I believe Sam Raimi is directing Doctor Strange 2.
So,
and in an interview stated, well, I want to make Doctor Strange 2 a horror film.
So hopefully we'll get those interesting horror angles.
I heard a rumor that they might bring Wolverine into Doctor Strange 2.
Ooh, we're getting excited. So, yeah. Oh, wider MCU implications, of course. I'm happy that we're getting some of our street level heroes. I'm happy that we're getting our multi-level or multiversal like situation going on. So
Daredevil was in the movie.
Yeah, Charlie Cox was in this, so of course I geeked out because I'm like,
I love the Daredevil Netflix series. It was good.
I love Charlie Cox plays a great Matt Murdock. I loved his performance and I loved his interactions, and it's cool that the Netflix series, or at least his interpretation of Daredevil, is going to be in the MCU. So I'm hyped for that.
And like, this is honestly something that we could talk to you guys about for hours and just go on.
And we might need to edit this one down a little.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have fun doing that tomorrow. But so I think the next time that we're probably gonna do something like this is either gonna be another episode of the Art Show when we shoot it, or depending on how the time plays out, maybe for the Batman. But anyway, thank you guys for watching and sticking through all this. Since there's no real visuals in this, you could listen to it like a podcast in your car while you're driving on a long road trip. This was Attilio Pro with Recall Reviews with my friend KrazyStarGazer. Tune in next time, and you have yourself a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.